everyone, and thank you for joining me for this week's Vermicomposting episode. I'm not doing my normal weekly update. I am showing how I am starting the breeder bin off again. I brought a 7-gallon tote, which is a much smaller tote than what I normally use for my regular bins. And with my first experiment into breeder bins, the container that I had the worms in was too large for the amount of worms I started with. This time around, I wanted to start with like 250 worms, so I wanted to go with something smaller, and I'm starting the bin like I would any normal bin. So if you want to start off your bin, you can just basically start it off with a mix of cocoa core and shredded cardboard and a little bit of your grit, and let it go with that. I added water to this mixture as well. Now I chose to let my bin sit for a week, and that was due to me taking worms slowly from each bin that I currently have. I didn't want to buy new worms. I wanted to select mature worms from the 5 systems that I have running. So once I mixed all of my materials together and got it to the consistency that I wanted it to, this did sit for about 7 to 10 days. You don't have to let your bin sit. You can immediately put your worms into castings. It's really just about preference, whether you have your worms, and what you're most comfortable doing for your systems. About a week later, it was time to start the painstaking task of selecting out the mature worms. What I learned from researching is that you want to take the worms that have the defined and well-developed clitellum ring around their front end. So I was looking for all of those types of worms to put into the breeder bin. It took me about a good 10 minutes, and don't worry, I won't make you go through all 10 minutes with me, but it did take me a bit of time to go through the whole bait tray and select out the best looking worms that I can find. I do intend on taking worms out of all of my systems with the exception of the one that I'm doing trash bag style, because I don't think that the bait tray will lend itself to getting the worms out of that too well. So I'm going to double dip into the flow through system since it does have the largest amount of worms, and I feel that this composting system can afford to lose a larger portion of worms. So I'm going to try to shoot for anywhere from 250 to 300 worms for the breeder bin. Once I was finished, since with this time through I got about 50 worms from the Vermibag Mini, I just did a small feeding in here, gave it the grit, and initially I put the regular lid on, but I come back and I put a piece of bubble wrap into the bin so that it can get some more airflow than the bin will lend to. And that is the update for this week. Nothing on the systems. I'll come back to that next week. And as always, thank you so much for watching.